Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's Reddit stories are from MaliciousCompliance. Story 1 is by Coach GE. Sure, give me the traffic violation ticket. Longtime lurker, first-time poster. This happened in the Philippines. 3 years ago, I was driving to get some lunch for me and my coworkers. I stopped at an intersection with a traffic light. I was to turn left and made sure to stop before the yellow intersection box. There were no painted markings on the road apart from the intersection box. This is important. Whilst waiting for the light to turn green, a traffic enforcer suddenly knocked on my window and told me that I have stopped my car beyond the white stop line for cars. Basically, the enforcer said that I was impeding the pedestrian crosswalk. My coworker, seated in the passenger seat, and I checked through the car windows and we cannot see any painted lines on the road apart from the intersection box. The enforcer guided me to turn left and made me stop at the side of the road. It was lunchtime, and it's common for some traffic enforcers have to ask for bribes for people to get out of violations. The following conversation then went as follows. Enforcer, you know why I stopped you? OP, no, please enlighten me. Enforcer, you stopped within the pedestrian lane. OP, even though there were no clear markings on the road? Enforcer, they're there, clear as day, very, very faded, but still there. OP, getting the hint that the enforcer is asking for bribes. Okay. Enforcer, do you want me to give you a ticket? OP, yes, please. You are an enforcer of the law. If you tell me that I made a violation, then I completely trust your authority. I apologize for the driving error I made, so please write your ticket, give it to me, and I'll immediately settle my fines. Thank you also for letting me know that I committed a mistake, and I will make sure not to do it again. Enforcer suddenly had a Pikachu face, realizing he won't be getting a bribe from me. After 10 seconds of stunned silence, he just said, "Get the heck out of here." I drove off with my lunch intact, money intact, and 2 bouts of howling laughter, courtesy of myself and my coworker. Apparently, it's not an uncommon thing in some countries that they'll ask you for bribes at intersections. I guess it happens a lot in the Philippines. Somebody down in the comments shared a story about them being in Bangkok. Luckily, we generally have protections in the US and Canada. We can take a cell phone and we can take a picture of it and say, this is the state of the lines on that day. And they're not visible at all, so I will not be paying any ticket. Our next story is by Okay, No My Guy. Need an answer now? Okay. Writing on my phone, so excuse formatting or typos. I work as a supervisor for a small, family-run, online designer bathroom retailer. Want more choice than the big box stores you come to a company like us. We are also much cheaper than buying directly from a brand. Any return that's outside the standard 30 days would be at the discretion of the manufacturer or brand. That doesn't mean no, but we need to check with the brand that the customer purchased to see if they would still accept it back, and if so, there would be a restocking charge. I have had similar conversations like this many times over the year, but the one that sticks to mind as the others I try to be more helpful. A customer purchased a stone effect shower tray from us. The size he ordered would have weighed about 50 kilograms and had to be sent with a fragile goods courier. About 2 months later, he called and advised my colleagues that he had measured wrong and needed a different size. Annoying, but if you're reordering from the same brand, then it will likely just be the cost of carriage for delivery and collection, and restocking is waived, even though it's outside of the 30 days. However, we need to check with the brand to confirm this, as it is not always the case. This is where the problem for him started. His plumbers were on site and need an answer now. My colleagues explained that it would only take an hour or 2 to get written confirmation from them, and that it would be 2 to 3 days delivery of the size he did need regardless. This was apparently not acceptable, and he got shouty and sweary, and therefore ended up being transferred to me. Shouting at our staff because of a problem entirely of your own creating will make me immediately not want to go out of my way to help more than I have to. I explained to the customer the same thing as my colleague, and that because it's outside the returns period, the discretion is with the brand, but providing they order an alternative size and that the one he has is in its original packaging and the condition it should just be the cost of carriage. That's when he reveals that his plumber actually threw away all the packaging for tray and that it was a ridiculous policy. The whole time, still being very shouty and sweary. I explained that I can speak with the brand and see if they're able to repackage it, but that I know if they are able to do this, they would impose a 25% restocking fee on top of the carriage charges. This was not acceptable. He needs a definite answer now. Enter malicious compliance. Okay. No. He was far too rude to continue any further, so he's getting the answer now, and that answer is no. Needless to say, he was not happy with no and tried to make me check with them like I previously said I would, but I stuck to it and advised him that a return or exchange would not be accepted as it was outside the time, and he hung up out of anger. Never did hear from him again, not even in an angry review. I assume he paid to have a builder extend his walls to make the tray size work, as how specific of a tray he ordered would not have sold easily secondhand either. Moral of the story is be nice to people, or at the very least don't be rude, and don't ask for an immediate answer if you're not happy with all the possible answers. I need an answer now. I need you to check on it right now. I don't have time for my mistake to cause a delay. Okay, as you wish, sir. The answer is no. Have a nice day. That's so simple. It's funny how a single word answer can sometimes solve all your problems. No. Our next story is by This Dude Is Not Well. Accidental malicious compliance for my traditional conservative father. None of this was intentional, really. Not strictly so. Malicious compliance on the part of the universe, I suppose. Regardless, my father has somehow managed to monkey paw himself into getting his way several times in my life in the, from his perspective, worst way imaginable. I took to alternative fashion from a very young age, and my father hated it. Explicitly said it embarrassed him because it made it look like he had no control over me. To keep this brief, I'll spare you the details, but my father was a complicated man. I've come to terms with the fact that there's plenty I love and respect about him as a person, as well as fully acknowledge he was profoundly abusive. This by itself was enough to seriously up the degree of open antagonism he treated me with. A grown man who prided himself on being the king of his castle was threatened by his 12-year-old baby cringelord emo daughter. I wouldn't say that I fully understood what was wrong with me then, but I knew something was. That he reacted this strongly over a transgression this benign was heartbreaking, as it was informative as to the fact that I never had any hope of making him happy. In an actual act of malicious compliance, he told me he'd cut off all my hair in the night if I ever dyed my hair black like I had asked to for my birthday. So I dyed my hair blue. He was convinced by my choice of dress in this action that I was heck bent on being a word that rhymes with bore but is used to denigrate women. Thinking that hair dyeing is a loose woman behavior seems like an opinion too antiquated for even a boomer like himself, but there you go. He became extremely concerned anytime I was around any boys of my age and went on and on about how much of an embarrassment to the family it would be if I got pregnant. He took steps to actively keep me from getting a boyfriend long after most kids my age started to date. At some point, I think he did realize he was shadowboxing with an imaginary threat. It took me till I was 16 to come out to anyone as a lesbian, but I didn't tell him until I was 20. But he got his way. I was never in any danger of humiliating the family by being a pregnant teen because I've never dated men. My father figured out long before I open talked about it with him that I was gay, or might be. I'm not exactly sure. I lived with the threat of being disowned over it for years before moving away at 18 for college. If I could have done anything to break the veil of plausible deniability, I probably would have. Being kicked out of the house is almost a death sentence where I live in the winter. From 16 onwards, I had to make plans and contingencies for those plans to make sure I survive in case he ever found out. Eventually, he came to terms with it enough when I was like 20 and living on my own to be introduced for the first time to the girl I was seeing at the time. He treated her well, which is more than I ever thought I could ask for at the time, though I still to this day don't trust my parents around my partners for too long. His big cope was that he was certain in good time I'd come to my senses and realize I was straight all along, and that he could grin and bear it in the meantime. Even with this being marked as an improvement, it still very much stung. That he was still not ready to really chill the F out was setting both me and him to get hurt all over again. But what do you know? Turns out he was absolutely correct. I did just realize a few years later I was straight all along. Silly me. And by that, I mean I bit the bullet and finally transitioned into a man. If you're not following, that makes me a transgender man who's attracted to women, which makes me straight. Exactly as my father predicted. My father got everything he wanted. I didn't dye my hair black when I was 12. I did it when I was 15, and funny that he considered it an improvement at that point. I never got pregnant since I never slept with men to begin with, and he's now the father of 2 straight sons instead of one normal enough eldest. My brother never really lived up to his expectations either, for even pettier reasons though. And one wild, boar-looking gay daughter who rubbed up against his fragile machismo. Macho, macho man. This guy thinks he's a macho man. That's all that comes to my mind when I see machismo or macho. I burst into song randomly. It's both a blessing and a curse. Our stories for today have come to a close, but until we meet again, most of the snow that we had on the ground, we had a couple inches, has completely melted. It's not nice outside because it all melted yesterday and it's just kind of cold and dreary out, but I hope you guys have a wonderful day.